I shouldn't have come to my sister's funeral, because she was never supposed to exist. The rain fell in steady sheets, tapping against rows of black umbrellas like a quiet warning, and I stood at the edge of the cemetery, 20 yards away from a coffin that held a face identical to mine. Every feature mirrored so perfectly it felt like staring into a reflection that had chosen a different life and a different ending. No one noticed me at first. They were too busy watching him. Adrian Vercelli didn't walk like other men. He moved slow, deliberate, like the ground belonged to him before anyone else dared to step on it. 6'2" of quiet authority wrapped in a perfectly tailored black suit that didn't wrinkle under the rain, as if even the weather knew better than to touch him. Conversation softened when he passed. Shoulders straightened. Eyes dropped. I had read about men like him, heard whispers in places I wasn't supposed to be, but nothing prepared me for the way the air shifted when he reached the front of the grave, like the entire world paused just to see how he would react to the woman he had loved, lying still in polished wood. I should have left then. That was the plan. Stay hidden. Confirm the truth. Disappear before anyone could connect the impossible. But then he looked up. And he saw me. It wasn't curiosity. It wasn't confusion. It was recognition. Immediate. Violent in its intensity without a single raised voice. His eyes locked onto mine from across the distance. And for a moment, the rain faded, the murmurs disappeared, and it was just him and me and the undeniable fact that I looked like the woman he had just buried. My breath caught. My fingers tightened around the thin silver chain resting against my collarbone. The only thing I had left that proved I wasn't imagining this, that this wasn't some twisted coincidence. He moved toward me. Not rushed. Never rushed. But every step closed the distance faster than it should have, like space itself was bending to his will. People shifted out of his way without being told. No one asked questions. No one dared. By the time he stopped in front of me, I could feel the heat of his presence through the cold rain, could see the fine detail in his face, the sharp cut of his jaw, the controlled tension in his expression, like something inside him was holding back a storm that refused to break. Say your name, he said, voice low, steady, the kind of tone that didn't need volume to demand obedience. I swallowed. My name felt wrong in my own mouth. It always had. I don't have one you'd recognize. A flicker, just for a second. But I saw it. Something shifted behind his eyes. Something dangerous and searching and far too aware. His gaze dropped to my throat, to the necklace, and then his hand moved. Fast. His fingers wrapped around my wrist, firm but controlled, like he was testing something, confirming something only he could see, and my pulse betrayed me instantly, racing beneath his touch. That doesn't belong to you, he said quietly. Not a question. A statement. I forced myself not to pull away, not to show fear, because fear would make this worse. It belonged to her, I said, matching his tone, even though my heart was slamming against my ribs like it wanted out. His grip tightened just slightly, not enough to hurt, enough to anchor. Around us, I could feel attention shifting. Subtle, controlled. Men in dark suits repositioning without drawing notice. Watching, waiting. The world closing in without a single loud move. Where did you get it? He asked. I met his eyes. Held them. This was the moment. The line I couldn't uncross. She gave it to me. I said. Silence. Thick. Heavy. Impossible. His expression didn't change. But something in him did. I could feel it. Like standing too close to a live wire without touching it. That's not possible, he said. And for the first time, there was something under the control. Something human. Something close to disbelief. I leaned in slightly, lowering my voice so only he could hear, even though I knew every ear around us was already tuned to this moment. She didn't die the way you think. His eyes sharpened instantly. The softness vanished, replaced by something colder, more dangerous. His hand didn't leave my wrist. If anything, it steadied, like he had made a decision I couldn't see yet. Careful, he said. You're standing at the edge of something you don't understand. I let out a slow breath. Rain slid down my face, cold against skin that felt too warm. No, I whispered. I'm the reason she's gone. That did it. Not outwardly. He didn't react the way most people would. No sudden movement. No raised voice. But his eyes, God, his eyes, locked onto mine with a focus so sharp it felt like he was cutting through every lie I'd ever told, searching for something real. Behind him, I caught the subtle shift again. A hand brushing against a jacket. A glance exchanged. Someone didn't like this. Someone didn't want me here. Adrian noticed it too. Of course he did. He noticed everything. His head tilted just slightly, not breaking eye contact with me, but his awareness expanding outward, calculating, measuring, deciding. Then, without warning, he stepped closer. Close enough that I could feel his breath, steady and controlled, in contrast to mine. If you're lying, he said softly, this ends badly for you. I didn't flinch. Couldn't. Not now. And if I'm not? I asked. For the first time, something almost unreadable crossed his face. Not doubt. Not belief. Something in between. Something dangerous in a completely different way. His grip shifted, not loosening, but changing. Possessive. Decisive. Final. Then nothing ends, he said. It begins. The rain did not stop when he took my wrist. It followed us, steady and relentless, as if the sky itself refused to look away from what was happening. I felt it soak through my sleeves, drip from my hair, slide down my spine, but I did not move. Neither did he. Adrian Vercelli stood inches from me, his grip firm, his eyes locked onto mine like he was rewriting everything he thought he knew in real time. Around us, the funeral had resumed its quiet rhythm, but it was an illusion. I could feel the shift, the attention, the way people pretended not to stare while still watching everything. You said it begins, I whispered, my voice barely carrying past the space between us. So what exactly do you think is starting? His jaw tightened slightly, the only visible crack in his composure. The part where you tell me the truth, he replied. His tone did not rise. It did not need to. It wrapped around me like a command instead of a question. I exhaled slowly, forcing my heartbeat to steady, even though his presence made that nearly impossible. You already decided I am lying, I said. So why ask? Hey. Pause. Not long, but long enough to matter. His eyes searched my face, not like a stranger, not like a threat, but like someone trying to find something they had lost and did not expect to see again. Because if you are not, he said quietly, then everything I buried today is not what I thought it was. The words settled between us, heavier than the rain, heavier than the silence of the grave behind him. I followed his gaze for just a second, to the polished wood lowered into the ground, to the flowers arranged too perfectly, too carefully, like grief could be organized into something clean and acceptable. My chest tightened. It was never what you thought, I said. That was when it happened. Subtle, almost invisible. But I saw it. A man near the far edge of the gathering shifted his stance. Another turned his head just slightly too fast. A whisper passed between them that never reached sound, but carried intention all the same. Adrian noticed too. Of course he did. His grip on my wrist did not change, but his attention widened, pulling in everything around us without losing focus on me. You are attracting attention, he said under his breath. So are you, I replied. His eyes flicked past me, just once, and that was all it took. Decision. Immediate. Final. His hand moved from my wrist to my elbow, not rough, not forceful, but unmistakably guiding. You are coming with me, he said. Not a request. Not even a threat. Just fact. I hesitated for half a second. Enough to be real. Not enough to resist. That sounds like a bad idea, I murmured. Most things involving me are, he said, already turning, already moving, already expecting me to follow. And I did. The cemetery path stretched ahead of us, slick with rain, lined with black cars that gleamed under the gray sky like silent witnesses. His people were everywhere now that I looked for them. Not obvious. Not loud. Just present. Watching. Calculating. The closer we got to the vehicles, the heavier the air felt, like something was building just beneath the surface. You have about 30 seconds, he said without looking at me, to explain why you look exactly like the woman I just buried. I let out a quiet breath. 30 seconds. For a truth that had taken years to piece together. I did not know about her, I said. Not at first. He stopped walking, slowly turned back to me. Rain traced down his face, but he did not blink it away. That is not an answer, he said. It is the beginning of one, I replied. His gaze sharpened. Then continue. I glanced around us. The men had closed in just enough to be noticeable now. Not threatening. Not yet. But the space was shrinking. You said you buried everything today, I said. You are wrong. You buried a version of the story someone wanted you to believe. His expression darkened, Not with anger, but with something colder. More controlled. Careful, he said again, quieter this time. You are stepping into something that does not forgive mistakes. I met his eyes, steady. I have been in it longer than you think. That caught him. Not visibly, but I felt it. The shift. The recalculation. Who are you? He asked again, but this time it was different. Not a demand. Not a test. A need. I swallowed. The name felt heavy, like it belonged to a life I had not fully claimed yet. Lena, I said. Lena Hayes. The last name landed between us like a spark. His reaction was immediate, even if controlled. His shoulders went still. His eyes narrowed just slightly. That is not possible, he said. I gave a small, humorless breath. You keep saying that. Because it is not, he replied. I know everything about her family. No, I said softly. You know what you were told. Silence. Again. But this time it stretched longer. Thicker. Around us, the rain continued its steady rhythm, but the world felt like it had narrowed to just this moment. Just this conversation. Just the thin line between truth and everything that had been hidden. Adrian stepped closer again, his voice dropping even lower. If you are lying, he said, you are placing yourself in a very dangerous position. I held his gaze. Did not look away. I have been in a dangerous position my entire life, I said. This is just the first time you are seeing it. For a second, something almost like respect flickered across his face. Gone as quickly as it came. But I saw it. He turned slightly, signaling something to the men around us without a word. The space opened just enough. Not freedom, just movement. Then he looked back at me, decision fully formed now. Get in the car, he said. You are going to tell me everything. I did not move right away. Not because I was afraid, but because I knew this was the point of no return. Once I stepped into his world, there would be no stepping back out untouched. He noticed my hesitation. Of course he did. His expression softened by a fraction. Not kindness. Something else. Something more dangerous. If you are telling the truth, he said quietly, then you have already been part of my world longer than you realize. I searched his face for something to hold on to. Something certain. There was nothing. Just control. Just power. Just a man who had buried the woman he loved and was now staring at her reflection standing in the rain. I took a step forward. Then another. The car door opened. Warm light spilled out against the gray. I paused just before getting in. Looked back at him one last time. You are not ready for what I am about to tell you, I said. His eyes held mine, steady, unshaken. Try me. The car door closed with a quiet, final sound that felt louder than anything else that day. I sat still for a second, the warmth inside the vehicle wrapping around me like a world completely separate from the rain outside, but it did not make me feel safe. Nothing about this felt safe. Across from me, Adrian Vercelli slid into the seat opposite mine, his movements precise, controlled, as if every second was calculated before it happened. The door shut. The noise of the cemetery disappeared instantly. Silence replaced it. Not empty. Pressured. The kind that made every breath feel like it mattered. The car began to move before either of us spoke. I watched the window as the gray sky blurred into streaks, the cemetery fading behind us inch by inch, and with it, any chance of turning back. Start talking, he said. His voice was calm, but there was something underneath it now. Not anger. Not yet. Something sharper. Focused. I let out a slow breath, my fingers brushing against the necklace at my collarbone again, grounding myself in something real before I stepped into the part of the truth that could not be taken back. I did not grow up knowing her name. I said, not Elena. Not yours. Not any of it. He did not interrupt. That alone told me how serious this had become. I grew up in a small town about 80 miles north of here. I continued. Nothing special. No connections. No history that anyone would care about. I paused, watching his reaction. There was none. Not on the surface. I always knew something was wrong, I added quietly. You do not grow up feeling like a copy of something you have never seen without noticing it. His eyes shifted slightly at that. Just enough. Explain, he said. I swallowed. People used to tell me I looked familiar, I said, even when I had never met them. Teachers. Strangers. Once, a woman in a grocery store called me by a different name and started crying before she realized I was not who she thought I was. His jaw tightened just slightly. And you never questioned it? He asked. I gave a small, almost bitter smile. I did. But questions do not mean answers when no one around you is willing to tell the truth. The car turned, smooth and quiet, the city beginning to rise around us through the tinted glass, tall buildings cutting through the gray sky like silent witnesses. So I stopped asking, I said. Until 3 months ago. That got his attention. Fully. What happened 3 months ago, he asked. I looked down at my hands for a second, remembering. The moment everything shifted. The moment the life I thought I understood cracked open. I found a box, I said. Hidden. Old. Not meant for me. He leaned forward slightly. Not much. But enough. And inside, I met his eyes again. Pictures, I said. Dozens of them. Of me. But not me. Silence filled the space again, but it was different now. He was listening. Really listening. Same face, I continued. Same eyes. Same everything. Just different clothes. Different places. Different life. His voice dropped even lower. Elena. I nodded once. Yes. He sat back slowly, processing, but I could see it in his expression. He was already connecting things. Already rebuilding the past with new pieces he had never considered before. That is not possible, he said again, but this time it sounded less like certainty and more like resistance. That is what I said, I replied, until I found the letter. His gaze snapped back to mine. What letter? I hesitated for half a second, not because I did not want to tell him, because I knew this was the point where everything would change. It was addressed to someone named Elena, I said, but it was hidden with my things. His breathing slowed, controlled, waiting. It said she had to be protected, I continued, that there were people who would come looking, that one of us had to disappear so the other could survive. The car felt smaller suddenly, the air tighter. One of us, he repeated. I nodded. Twins, I said softly. The words settled between us like something fragile and explosive at the same time. He did not speak immediately. For the first time since I met him, Adrian Vercelli looked uncertain. Not weak. Never that. But something in his foundation had shifted. That is not what I was told, he said finally. I know, I replied. That is the point. His eyes hardened again, but it was different now. Not dismissive. Protective. Dangerous in a new direction. Who wrote the letter? He asked. I shook my head slightly. No name. Just a warning. And you believed it? He pressed. I held his gaze. I am sitting in front of you, looking exactly like the woman you buried today, I said. What do you think? That shut him up for exactly 3 seconds. Then his hand moved. Not toward me. Toward the console beside him. He pressed a button. The privacy screen between the front and back of the car darkened completely. The space sealed. No one hears this conversation but us, he said. Then he looked back at me, and whatever hesitation had been there before was gone, replaced by something far more intense. Tell me everything, he said. From the beginning. I inhaled slowly, steadying myself, because I knew what came next would not just change his world. It would change mine too. The letter did not just warn about danger, I said. It mentioned a name. His eyes narrowed. What name? I hesitated just long enough for it to matter. Yours, I said. That hit harder than anything else I had said so far. Not outwardly. He did not flinch. But I saw it. The shift. The realization. The connection forming faster than either of us could stop it. That is impossible, he said quietly. I had never met her before 5 years ago. I shook my head slowly. That is what you were meant to believe. Silence. Heavy. Final. Then he leaned forward again, closer this time, his voice dropping to something almost dangerous in its calm. You are telling me, he said, that my entire relationship with her was built on a lie I never saw. I did not look away. I am telling you, I whispered, that you were part of the plan long before you ever knew her. The car slowed slightly as it approached a set of iron gates ahead, tall and imposing, opening before we even reached them, like the world itself was responding to his presence. But inside this car, inside this moment, it did not feel like he was in control anymore. And if that is true, he said, his voice steady but colder than before, then someone has been playing a very long game. I nodded once. Yes, I said, and I think they are still playing. The gates closed behind us with a quiet authority that felt louder than any sound I had heard that day. I watched them through the tinted glass as they sealed shut, cutting off the outside world like it had never existed in the first place. The car slowed along a curved driveway lined with perfectly trimmed hedges and tall stone walls, the kind of place built to keep things out, or keep things in. I was not sure which one applied to me yet. Adrian did not look away from me. Not once. If my name was in that letter, he said slowly, then whoever wrote it knew exactly who I would become. I nodded. Yes. His expression hardened, but not in anger. In calculation. And they knew she would find me, he continued. Or that I would find her. Not just find her, I said quietly. Trust her. That landed deeper than anything else. I saw it in the way his shoulders shifted, the way his gaze dropped for half a second before locking back onto mine. Trust. That was not something a man like him gave easily. And yet he had. The car came to a smooth stop in front of a massive stone entrance. The doors were already open before we fully halted, as if every movement here had been anticipated long before it happened. We are not done, he said. Not a warning. A promise. I know, I replied. The door opened beside me. Cool air rushed in, carrying the faint scent of rain and something sharper beneath it, something controlled and deliberate, like everything else in his world. I stepped out. The ground beneath my feet was solid, polished stone, untouched by the chaos I had just left behind. For a second, I felt completely out of place. Then I remembered why I was here. Adrian stepped out on the other side, straightening slightly, his presence shifting again the moment he crossed into his own territory. It was subtle, but undeniable. Outside, at the cemetery, he had been a man holding control. Here, he was the control. People appeared without being called. Not rushing. Not frantic. Just there. A man in his late 40s approached, his posture straight, his expression unreadable but respectful. Sir, he said, glancing briefly at me before returning his focus to Adrian. Adrian did not look at him immediately. His attention stayed on me for one more second, as if making sure I was still there, still real. Inside, he said finally. I followed. The interior was quiet in a way that did not feel peaceful. More like everything inside knew better than to make unnecessary noise. High ceilings. Clean lines. No clutter. Every detail precise, intentional, controlled. It did not feel like a home. It felt like a place where decisions were made. Important ones. Dangerous ones. I stopped just inside the entrance, my eyes adjusting to the softer light, taking in the scale of it all. This is where you live? I asked, unable to keep the question from slipping out. This is where I operate, he corrected. That told me everything I needed to know. The man who had approached earlier stepped closer, lowering his voice slightly. There were unusual movements at the funeral, he said carefully. We noticed, Adrian replied without turning. Have them reviewed. The man nodded once. Efficient. Silent. Gone within seconds. I felt a chill run down my spine that had nothing to do with the weather. You expected something to happen, I said. Adrian finally looked at me again, his eyes sharp, aware. I expect everything, he said. It is the only way to stay ahead of people who prefer to stay hidden. I let that settle. Because that was exactly what this felt like. Something hidden. Something planned. Something still moving behind the scenes. Then you already know this is not over, I said. He took a step closer. Not threatening. Not gentle either. Just certain. No, he said. It is not. Silence stretched between us again, but this time it was different. Not questioning. Not uncertain. Building. The letter, he said. You said it mentioned me. I nodded. Yes. Exactly what did it say? His voice was quieter now. Focused. I closed my eyes for a second, recalling the exact words, the way they had felt when I first read them, the way they had not made sense until now. It said, I began slowly. If anything happens, find him. He will not remember why he matters, but he does. Adrian did not move. Not even a breath. That is all, he asked. No, I said. I opened my eyes, meeting his gaze again. It also said, do not trust the ones closest to him. That changed everything. I saw it instantly. The shift. Not outward. Not obvious. But real. His eyes flicked, just for a fraction of a second, toward the space behind me. Toward the hall. Toward the people who had already disappeared into the background of his world. Then back to me. Controlled. Locked. But something had moved. You understand what you are implying, he said. Yes, I replied. Do you? I held his gaze. Did not hesitate. I am not implying anything, I said. I am telling you that whoever set this up knew exactly how to get close to you. His jaw tightened. Not in anger. In recognition. Close enough, he said slowly, to build trust. Close enough? I echoed. to shape your reality. The room felt smaller again, the air heavier, like something invisible had just stepped into the space with us. Adrian turned slightly, pacing one step, then another, his mind moving faster than his body, connecting pieces I could not see yet. Then he stopped, turned back to me, and for the first time since I met him, there was something new in his expression. Not doubt, not disbelief, awareness. If what you are saying is true, he said, then this was never about her. I nodded once. No, I said softly. It was about you. The words settled deep. Final. And for the first time, Adrian Vercelli did not immediately respond. Because he already knew. Somewhere beneath all that control, all that certainty, he already knew it was true. He already knew. I could see it in the way he stopped moving, in the way the silence around us changed from tension into something heavier, something closer to truth pressing against the surface. Adrian did not look at me right away. His gaze drifted past my shoulder, unfocused for a fraction of a second, like he was replaying years of memories through a different lens, searching for cracks that had always been there, but never questioned. If this was about me, he said slowly, then she was never the target. I shook my head. No, she was the access point. That word settled hard. Access. Not love. Not coincidence. Strategy. His jaw tightened, the muscles shifting under his skin as the meaning locked into place. You are asking me to believe that everything I built with her was placed there, he said. Not angry. Not yet. Just precise. I held his gaze. I am telling you that someone needed to get close enough to you without triggering suspicion, I replied. And they succeeded. A long breath left him, controlled but heavier than before. He turned away, pacing once across the polished floor, then stopping again, hands at his sides, posture still perfect, but carrying something new beneath it. Not weakness. Awareness. 5 years, he said quietly. She was with me for 5 years. I did not interrupt. This was not about convincing him anymore. This was about him seeing it for himself. There were no inconsistencies, he continued. No signs. No, he stopped. Just for a second. That was enough. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. No signs you were looking for, I said. His eyes flicked to mine instantly. Sharp. What is that supposed to mean? I did not hesitate. It means she did not need to fool you, I said. She only needed to be exactly what you were willing to trust. Silence again. But this time, it cut deeper. Because it was not about deception anymore. It was about perception. About how easily reality could be shaped when you believed you were the one in control. Adrian stared at me, searching, measuring every word, every breath, like he was trying to decide if I was another piece of the same game or the one person not playing it. And you? He asked finally. What are you in all of this? The question hung between us, heavier than anything else he had said. I felt it settle in my chest, the weight of it, the truth I had not fully allowed myself to define yet. I am the part they did not account for, I said. His expression shifted slightly. Not disbelief. Interest. Explain, he said. I took a slow breath. The letter was not just a warning, I said. It was a contingency. His eyes narrowed. Meaning? Meaning whoever wrote it knew something could go wrong, I said. They knew the plan might not hold. And if it did not, I was supposed to find you. That landed. Harder than before. Because this time, it was not about the past. It was about now. About why I was standing here. In his world. In his space. In front of him. You were sent to me, he said. Not a question. A realization. I shook my head slightly. No, I corrected. I was sent to the truth. His gaze sharpened again. And you think I am part of that? I know you are, I said. The room felt tighter again. Like the walls had moved closer without anyone noticing. Adrian stepped toward me, closing the distance just enough to make the air shift between us. Then tell me something useful, he said, his voice dropping lower. Because right now, all you have given me is a story that rewrites everything I thought I knew, without a single piece of proof I can verify. I expected that. I had been waiting for it. My hand moved slowly, deliberately, to the inside pocket of my coat. I saw the shift immediately. The awareness. The readiness. His body did not move, but his attention sharpened to a point. Careful, he said. I am, I replied. I pulled out the folded piece of paper, worn at the edges from being opened too many times, and held it between us. This is all I have, I said. He did not take it immediately. His eyes stayed on mine for 1 second longer, like he was deciding whether this was another move in a game he had not yet identified. Then he reached for it. Slow. Controlled. His fingers brushed mine for the briefest moment as he took the letter, unfolding it with the same precision he applied to everything else. His eyes moved across the page, line by line, careful, calculated. And then he stopped. Not dramatically, not visibly to anyone else. But I saw it. The exact second something on that paper hit him in a way he did not expect. His grip tightened slightly on the edge of the page. His breathing shifted, just enough to notice if you were close enough. I did not speak. I did not move. I just watched. Because whatever he was seeing, it was real. Where did you get this? He asked quietly. I told you, I said. The box. He looked up at me, and this time, there was no doubt in his expression. No dismissal. No resistance. Just something far more dangerous. Belief. This handwriting, he said slowly. I have seen it before. My chest tightened. Where? I asked. He folded the letter carefully, too carefully, like it had suddenly become something fragile and valuable at the same time. In my office, he said. In documents that were not supposed to connect to anything outside my organization. A chill ran through me. You were saying whoever wrote that letter? I started. He finished it for me. Has been inside my world for longer than I realized. Silence. Deep. Heavy. Final. The truth was not just close now. It was here, standing in the room with us. And neither of us could pretend otherwise anymore. Adrian stepped back slightly, his mind already moving ahead, connecting pieces faster than I could follow. Then he looked at me again, and there was something new in his expression. Not just awareness. Not just belief. Decision. If they used her to get to me, he said, and they left you as a backup, his voice trailed for a second, then sharpened. Then you are not just part of the story. I held my breath. He met my eyes. Fully. Completely. You are the mistake they cannot control. A mistake they cannot control. I repeated quietly, letting the words settle in my chest, heavier than they should have been, because mistakes were not supposed to survive in worlds like his. Adrian did not respond immediately. He was watching me again, but differently now, not just analyzing, not just questioning, but assessing what I meant to everything he had just realized. That depends, he said finally, on whether you understand what. That makes you. I held his gaze. Tell me, I said. His expression did not change, but his presence shifted again, sharper, more focused, like he had moved from reaction to strategy. It makes you visible, he said, to people who spent years making sure you stayed hidden. A chill ran through me, slow and deliberate, settling deep in my spine. I had thought about that. Of course I had. But hearing it from him made it real in a way nothing else had. Then I was never meant to be safe, I said. No, he replied. You were meant to be useful. The honesty in that should have unsettled me more than it did, but at this point, I was past pretending anything about this situation was normal. And now? I asked. He stepped closer, just slightly, enough that I could feel the shift in the air again. Now, he said, you are unpredictable. The word lingered between us. Unpredictable. Not weak. Not disposable. Something else. Something harder to categorize. That sounds like a problem, I said. For them, he corrected. I studied his face, searching for something I could trust, something steady in a situation that was anything but. And for you? I asked. He did not hesitate. I do not have problems, he said. I have variables. A small breath left me, almost a laugh, but not quite. And which one am I? I asked. His eyes held mine, steady, certain. The one I do not ignore, he said. Silence followed, but it did not feel empty. It felt like a shift had just taken place, something subtle but permanent. I was no longer just a stranger who looked like his past. I was something connected to his future. And that was more dangerous than anything else. He turned slightly, his attention moving beyond me again, already thinking ahead. The handwriting, he said. If it matches documents inside my operation, then this is not an external threat. It is internal. I finished. He nodded once. Yes. The word landed with quiet certainty. Internal. That meant proximity. Access. Trust. Exactly what the letter had warned about. You said not to trust the ones closest to you. I reminded him. His jaw tightened slightly. I heard you, he said. There was something in his tone now. Not resistance. Not denial. Calculation under pressure. Then you know what that means. I said. He looked at me again, and this time, there was no distance left in his gaze. It means I have been allowing someone to stand within reach of everything I built, he said. For years. The weight of that realization settled into the room like something alive. I felt it too, even though it was not my world. Not originally. But now, I was part of it whether I wanted to be or not. You said they are still playing, he continued. Why? I did not answer immediately. I thought about the letter again. About the tone. The urgency. The way it did not just warn, but anticipated. Because if the plan had worked perfectly, I said slowly, there would have been no reason to leave me behind. His eyes narrowed. So something went wrong. Yes, I said. And they do not know what. That shifted everything again. Because uncertainty was not something people like him tolerated easily. And whoever was behind this, they were dealing with uncertainty now. Which means they will try to fix it, he said. Yes. The word came out softer than I expected. He took a step away from me, moving toward a large glass wall that overlooked the grounds outside. The rain had slowed, turning into a light mist that blurred the edges of everything beyond the estate. He stood there for a second, still, composed, but I could see the movement beneath the surface. His mind was not resting. It was accelerating. If they believe you are a variable they did not account for, he said, not turning around, then they will try to remove you from the equation. The words were calm. Too calm. I felt my chest tighten, not with fear, but with clarity. I know, I said. He turned back to face me. Do you? He asked. I met his gaze. I have known since the moment I read that letter, I said. I just did not know what it meant until now. A pause. Then something shifted in his expression again. Not doubt. Not distance. Decision. Then you are not leaving, he said. I blinked once. That does not sound like a suggestion, I replied. It is not, he said. His tone left no room for misinterpretation. I crossed my arms slightly, not defensive, just grounding myself in something physical. You are keeping me here, I said. I am keeping you alive, he corrected. The difference between those two things should have mattered more than it did. But in this moment, they felt almost the same. And what do I get in return? I asked. He stepped closer again, stopping just within reach, his presence filling the space without effort. The truth, he said. The real one. I studied him for a second, searching for hesitation, for anything that suggested this was just another layer of control. I did not find it. What I found instead was something far more unsettling. He meant it. You think I came all this way for anything less? I asked quietly. His gaze softened by a fraction. Not weakness. Recognition. No, he said. I think you came because you did not have a choice. That hit closer than I wanted to admit. I looked away for a second, gathering my thoughts, then back at him. Then neither do you, I said. Silence. Then a slow nod. Agreement. Not spoken. Not needed. He turned toward the door, already moving again, already setting things into motion I could not see yet. There is something else, he said without looking back. What? I asked. He paused at the threshold, his hand resting lightly against the frame, his posture still perfectly controlled. If someone inside my world wrote that letter, he said, then they were not just watching me. I felt my breath catch. They were watching you too. The realization settled in slowly, like something cold spreading through my veins. I had thought I was stepping into his world. But the truth was, I had been part of it long before I ever knew his name. They were watching you too. The words did not leave the room when he said them. They stayed. They echoed. They settled into something permanent that I could not shake off even as the silence stretched between us. I stood there for a second, feeling it fully for the first time, not just understanding it, but absorbing it. This was never just about him. It was never just about her. It was about both of us, placed on opposite sides of something we did not even know we were part of. How long? I asked quietly. Adrian did not turn immediately. His back was still to me, his posture straight, controlled, but there was something heavier in the way he held himself now, like the weight of everything he had just realized had shifted his center of gravity. Long enough, he said, for them to build patterns. That word hit differently. Patterns. Not moments. Not accidents. Something studied. Something intentional. I stepped forward slowly, the sound of my shoes against the polished floor too loud in the quiet. Then they know how I think, I said. Maybe, he replied. But they also think they know how I think. He turned then, his eyes locking onto mine again, sharp, focused, fully present. And that is where they make their first mistake. I felt something shift in my chest. Not fear. Not exactly. Something closer to anticipation. You are already planning, I said. He did not deny it. They believe they are ahead, he said. Which means they are not watching for resistance yet. I studied him carefully. And you are going to give them one, I said. No, he corrected. I am going to give them the version of me they expect. That made me pause. And then, I asked. His gaze held mine, steady, unwavering. Then I changed the outcome. Silence followed, but this time it did not feel heavy. It felt sharp, directed, like the beginning of something instead of the aftermath. And me? I asked. Where do I fit into that? He took a step closer, closing the distance again, not aggressively, not forcefully, just enough to make his presence impossible to ignore. You do not fit, he said. You disrupt. The word lingered. Disrupt. Not controlled. Not placed. Something that did not belong to the structure they had built. That sounds dangerous, I said. It is, he replied. For them. I let out a slow breath, my mind catching up to the pace of everything that was unfolding. You are assuming they do not know I am here yet, I said. His expression shifted slightly. Not uncertainty. Calculation adjusting. They might, he admitted. But they do not know what you are. I frowned slightly. What does that mean? He held my gaze. It means they do not know if you are a threat, he said, or a mistake that will correct itself. I crossed my arms lightly, grounding myself again. And what am I? I asked. He did not answer immediately. He studied me, not like he was trying to figure me out, but like he was deciding something. Then, quietly, that depends on what you choose to be. The words settled deeper than I expected. Because for the first time since this started, it did not feel like I was just reacting to something that had already been set in motion. It felt like I had a role in how it ended. You think I have a choice, I said. He did not hesitate. You always have a choice, he replied. It just might not be the one you want. I looked away for a second, my thoughts racing, piecing together everything I knew, everything I had seen, everything I had felt since the moment I opened that letter. If they were watching me, I said slowly, then they know where I lived. Who I talked to. Everything. Yes, he said. And they let you live anyway. I looked back at him. That does not make sense, I said. It does, he replied. If you were never the primary focus. That stopped me. Because I had been thinking about this all wrong. Not as someone hidden. Not as someone protected. But as someone overlooked. They did not need to control me, I said quietly. Because I was not supposed to matter. Adrian's gaze sharpened slightly. Until now, he said. The shift was immediate. Clear. Final. So what changes? I asked. He stepped back slightly, giving himself space to think, to move, to plan. Everything, he said. Because now you are no longer invisible. I felt that. Deep. The weight of being seen. Not just by him, but by whoever had been behind this from the beginning. Then they are going to react, I said. Yes, he replied. The question is how. I took a slow breath, steadying myself. They will not come directly, I said. They will observe first. He nodded once. Agreement. Which means we control what they see, he said. Exactly, I replied. Our eyes met again, and this time, there was something different in the space between us. Not tension, not suspicion, alignment, not complete, not yet, but enough. Then we give them something to watch, I said. His expression shifted, just slightly, something almost like approval flickering beneath the surface. Yes, he said. We do. A pause. Then his tone sharpened again. But understand this, he added. Once we start, there is no stepping back into whatever life you had before. I held his gaze, steady, unflinching. I lost that life the moment I read that letter, I said. Silence followed. Then a slow nod. Final. He turned slightly, already moving again, already setting something into motion beyond what I could see. Then we begin, he said. I watched him for a second, the weight of everything settling into place, the past shifting, the future narrowing into something sharper, more defined. Then I spoke, my voice quiet but steady. They think they know your story, I said. He paused. Just slightly. They do, he replied. I shook my head once. No, I said. They know the version you showed them. He turned back toward me, his eyes locking onto mine, something deeper sparking behind them now. And what version is that? He asked. I took a slow breath. The one that does not see them coming. Silence. Then something changed. Not in the room. Not in the world. In him. And when he spoke again, his voice carried something new, something colder, something certain. Then let them keep believing that, he said. Then let them keep believing that. The words did not end the moment. They sharpened it. I stood there, watching him, feeling the shift settle into something real, something irreversible. This was no longer about uncovering the truth. This was about controlling what came next. Adrian moved first. Not fast. Never rushed. But everything about him carried intention now, like every step was already part of a larger design I had only just begun to see. If they are watching, he said, his voice low but precise, then they are already expecting a reaction. I nodded slowly. And you are not going to give them one, I said. He glanced at me, a flicker of something unreadable crossing his expression. I am going to give them exactly what they expect, he corrected. I let that sit for a second, replaying it in my mind, understanding the difference. Grief, I said. Control. Silence. Yes, he replied. The version of me they built their plan around. He stopped near a long table lined with documents and devices, his hand resting lightly against the edge as he looked down for a moment, then back at me. And you, he added, will not exist. That made me pause. That might be difficult, I said. I look exactly like someone they already buried. His gaze sharpened slightly. Which is why you do not appear as yourself, he said. Not yet. I tilted my head, studying him. You are hiding me, I said. I am controlling the timing, he replied. That distinction mattered. I could feel it. This was not about fear. This was about positioning. So what do they see? I asked. He did not hesitate. A man who just lost the one person closest to him, he said. A man who retreats, who consolidates, who does not question what has already been done. I nodded once. Predictable, I said. Exactly, he replied. Silence followed for a second, but it did not feel empty. It felt like the quiet before movement. And when do you stop being predictable? I asked. His eyes met mine again, steady, certain. When they are no longer watching for it, he said. A chill ran through me, not from fear, but from the precision of it. You are going to let them think they are winning, I said. For a moment, he replied. Long enough. I crossed my arms lightly, grounding myself again. And me? I asked. What do I do while you are being exactly what they expect? He stepped closer, just enough to shift the air between us again, his presence filling the space without effort. You observe, he said. You listen. And you remember everything. I held his gaze. That sounds like trust, I said. He did not look away. It is not trust, he replied. It is necessity. I let out a small breath, something almost like a smile, but not quite. You are very careful with your words, I said. I have to be, he replied. Now more than ever. The weight of that settled in. Because this was not just about uncovering someone else's plan anymore. It was about protecting his own from collapsing under it. You said they were inside your world, I said. Close enough to leave something like that letter. He nodded once. Yes. Then they are still here, I said. Somewhere in this house. In your operation. In your inner circle. His expression did not change, but the air shifted again. Sharper. Colder. Yes, he said. They are. The certainty in his voice made my chest tighten. Not with fear. With clarity. And you are going to find them, I said. He held my gaze, something darker settling. Behind his eyes now, something quieter but far more dangerous. No, he said. They are going to reveal themselves. I blinked once. That is a risk, I said. Everything is, he replied. The difference is whether you control which risks matter. I considered that, the weight of it, the logic behind it. He was not chasing them. He was forcing them to move, to react, to make a mistake. So we wait, I said. We watch, he corrected. I nodded slowly. The distinction mattered again. Waiting was passive. Watching was not. And when they make a move? I asked. He did not answer immediately. He stepped back slightly, giving himself space, his mind clearly moving through possibilities faster than I could follow. Then he looked at me again. Then we will know who they are, he said. Because people like that do not stay still when the plan changes. I felt something shift in my chest again. Not fear. Not uncertainty. Something closer to purpose. For the first time since this began, I was not just reacting. I was part of the direction it was going. You are using me as bait, I said quietly. He did not deny it. I am using the truth, he replied. I studied him carefully. And if the truth puts me in danger? I asked. He stepped closer again, his voice dropping just enough to carry weight without force. Then I will make sure it does not end there, he said. The words were simple, controlled, but there was something under them now. Not a promise. Not yet. Something forming. Something not fully defined. I held his gaze for a second longer, then nodded once. Then we do it your way, I said. Silence followed, but this time it felt aligned. Directed. Shared. He turned slightly, already moving again, already setting the next part into motion. There is one more thing, he said without looking back. What? I asked. He paused at the edge of the room, his hand resting lightly against the surface beside him. If they were watching you before, he said, then they already know what you looked like before today. I felt my breath catch slightly. Which means? I asked. He turned his head just enough for his voice to carry clearly. Which means they are already looking for the moment you change, he said. The realization settled in slowly. Sharp and unavoidable. This was not just about hiding anymore. It was about becoming something else before they could recognize what I was. I took a slow breath, steadying myself, stepping forward into the space he had already begun to reshape. Then they are about to be disappointed, I said quietly. And for the first time since this began, I felt it. Not just the weight of what was coming, but the shift in who I was inside it. They are about to be disappointed. The words stayed with me longer than I expected, echoing quietly in my mind as the room seemed to settle into a new kind of silence, one that was not empty, but waiting. Adrian did not respond right away. He studied me again, but this time there was something different in the way he looked at me, something less guarded, less distant, like he was no longer trying to decide whether I belonged here, but what I was capable of now that I did. Confidence, he said quietly. That can be useful. I met his gaze without hesitation. So can being underestimated, I replied. A faint shift touched his expression, not quite a smile, but something close to approval. Good, he said. Then we will use both. He turned away from me then, moving toward the far side of the room where a large digital display flickered to life with a soft glow, lines of information appearing in precise order, maps, schedules, names, patterns, all arranged in a way that felt overwhelming at first glance, but controlled underneath. Come here, he said. I stepped forward, my attention pulled toward the screen, trying to process what I was seeing, rows of data that meant nothing to me yet, but clearly meant everything to him. These are movement logs, he said, his voice steady, focused. People, vehicles, communications. Everything that happens inside this operation leaves a trace, even when it is designed not to. I nodded slowly, my eyes scanning the patterns, trying to find something familiar, something that connected to what I had seen in my own life. And you think the person behind this is in here? I said. Not think, he corrected. No. That certainty settled in my chest again, heavy but grounding. Then what are we looking for? I asked. He stepped closer to the display, his hand moving slightly as he adjusted. The view, narrowing the data into something more specific. Inconsistencies, he said. Small ones. The kind that do not matter on their own. I watched as the information shifted, lines tightening, patterns becoming more defined. Because people like this do not make obvious mistakes, I said. No, he replied. But they make human ones. That made me pause. You are assuming they are acting alone, I said. His gaze flicked to mine for a brief second. I am not, he said. But I am assuming only one of them knows the full plan. That changed the way I looked at the screen. Not as a single problem, but as layers. Pieces of something larger that not everyone understood. So we look for the one who moves differently, I said. Exactly, he replied. Silence settled again, but this time it felt active, like the room itself was thinking alongside us. I stepped closer to the display, narrowing my focus, letting the noise fade until only patterns remained. Show me the last 48 hours, I said. He did not question it. The data shifted instantly, compressing into a tighter frame, more recent, more relevant. I scanned it slowly, carefully, letting my eyes adjust to the rhythm of it, the repetition, the predictability, until something small caught my attention. Not obvious, not dramatic, just off. There, I said quietly. His eyes followed my indication, locking onto the same point almost immediately. Explain, he said. I leaned in slightly, focusing on the detail. This sequence repeats, I said. Same timing, same pattern. But this entry, I pointed again, more precisely. It is 2 minutes early. Adrian did not speak, but I felt the shift beside me, the way his attention sharpened instantly. 2 minutes does not matter, he said. Not on its own, I agreed. But patterns only work if they are consistent. I looked at him. Someone broke their own rhythm. Silence followed. Heavy. Focused. Then his hand moved again, isolating the data point, expanding it, connecting it to other entries. It happens again, he said quietly. Here. And here. I nodded. Not random, I said. Deliberate. He stepped back slightly, his mind clearly moving ahead again, connecting pieces faster than I could follow. They adjusted something, he said. But they kept the pattern close enough not to draw attention. I crossed my arms lightly, thinking. Which means they were already inside. The system when they made the change, I said. Yes, he replied. And confident enough to believe no one would notice. I let out a slow breath. Until now, I said. His gaze met mine again, and there was something in it now that had not been there before. Not just awareness. Not just control. Recognition. You see it, he said. Because you are not used to it, I replied. You are used to everything working perfectly. A pause. Then a small nod. And you are used to things not making sense, he said. I did not argue that. So we follow the inconsistency, I said. Yes, he replied. He adjusted the display again, tracing the movement backward, connecting it to names, locations, access points. This narrows it, he said. Not to one person, but to a group. I leaned in slightly, reading the names as they appeared, unfamiliar but suddenly important. How many? I asked. 4, he said. The number settled between us. Not small. Not impossible. Just enough to complicate everything. And one of them wrote the letter, I said. Yes. And one of them knew about me, I added. His eyes flicked to mine again. Yes. Silence followed, but this time it carried something new. Direction. Then we do not look for who is hiding, I said slowly. We look for who is watching. His expression shifted again, sharper, more focused. Explain, he said. I held his gaze. If they have been tracking you and me both, I said, then they are not just reacting to what happens inside this house. I gestured slightly toward the screen. They are watching for changes. He nodded slowly. Which means when something changes, they will move, I finished. The realization settled in fully now. Clear. I felt it in the way the room seemed to tighten again, not with tension, but with anticipation. Adrian stepped closer to me again, his voice lowering slightly. Then we give them something to react to, he said. I met his gaze, steady. Something they cannot ignore, I added. A pause. Then something shifted between us again. Not just alignment. Understanding. You are learning quickly, he said. I let out a quiet breath. I do not have the option not to, I replied. Silence followed. Then he nodded once. Final. Then we begin the next step, he said. I glanced back at the screen, at the names, at the patterns that were no longer invisible. And what does that look like? I asked. He turned slightly, already moving, already thinking ahead. Then he stopped just long enough to answer. It looks like control, he said. And this time, I understood exactly what he meant. Control did not feel like power the way I expected it to. It felt quiet, precise, like something tightening slowly instead of striking all at once. I stood beside the display, watching as Adrian moved through the data again, but this time with intent, not discovery. He was no longer looking for answers. He was shaping them. For names, I said, glancing at the narrowed list on the screen. That is not small. It is not supposed to be, he replied. If it were one, it would be obvious. I nodded slowly. That made sense. Nothing about this had been obvious so far. So what changes? I asked. He did not look at me immediately. His attention stayed on the screen, his fingers moving slightly as he adjusted something I could not fully follow, isolating certain lines, dimming others, creating a new pattern out of the old one. Their environment, he said finally. I frowned slightly. You are not removing them, I said. No, he replied. I am giving them a reason to move. That familiar chill returned, not from fear, but from the realization of how deliberate everything he did was. What kind of reason? I asked. He turned his head just enough to look at me. A shift in structure, he said. Something that forces adaptation. I crossed my arms lightly, thinking it through. If they are watching patterns, I said, then breaking those patterns will trigger a response. Yes, he replied. But not randomly. He stepped away from the screen, moving toward a long table where a series of devices sat in perfect alignment, each one representing something I did not yet fully understand. We change one variable, he continued. Not enough to create chaos. Just enough to create attention. I followed him, my mind catching up to the logic. And we watch who reacts, I said. Exactly, he replied. He picked up one of the devices, his movements calm, controlled, but purposeful. This system runs on predictability, he said. Schedules, communications, access points. Everyone inside it learns the rhythm whether they realize it or not. I nodded. And the one who is manipulating it will notice the change first, I said. Yes, he replied. Because they will need to adjust. Silence settled for a second, but it was not empty. It was focused. I glanced back at the screen, at the 4 names still highlighted. Which one do you think it is? I asked. He did not answer right away. Instead, he set the device back down, his attention shifting inward, processing, calculating. The one who has not made a mistake yet, he said finally. That made me pause. That narrows it. I asked. No, he said. It complicates it. I let out a slow breath. Of course it does. A faint shift touched his expression again, something close to acknowledgement. Perfection is not natural, he said. It is constructed. I studied him for a second. So the one who appears the most stable is the one who has worked the hardest to appear that way, he finished. That changed everything. I looked back at the screen again, this time not searching for errors, but for the absence of them. Then we are not looking for disruption, I said. We are looking for control. His gaze met mine again, steady, sharp. Yes. The word landed with quiet certainty. I felt something click into place, a shift in perspective that made the entire situation clearer. So we create a situation that cannot be controlled perfectly, I said slowly. Something that forces imperfection. Adrian nodded once. Exactly. He turned back toward the display, his hand moving again as he adjusted the system, setting something into motion I could not fully see but could feel building beneath the surface. What are you changing? I asked. Access, he said. Not all of it. Just enough. I frowned slightly. You are restricting movement? I said. I am redirecting it, he corrected. That distinction mattered again. It always did with him. If you block something, he continued, people react openly. If you redirect it, they adapt quietly. I nodded slowly. And the one who needs control will not stay quiet, I said. No, he replied. They will try to fix it. Silence followed, but it felt different now. Like the plan had shifted from theory into motion. How long? I asked. Before they react. He glanced at the screen again, then back at me. Not long, he said. They are already watching. I felt my chest tighten slightly, not with fear, but with awareness. This was happening now. Not later. Not eventually. Now. Then we should be ready, I said. We are, he replied. He stepped closer again, his presence steady, grounded, like everything around him aligned with his decisions. Stay close, he added. And do not speak unless I tell you to. I raised an eyebrow slightly. You think I am going to say something wrong? I asked. His gaze held mine, calm but firm. I think you are going to say something true, he said. And right now, that matters more. I let that settle. He was not trying to silence me. He was controlling when the truth entered the room. Understood, I said. A faint nod. Then his attention shifted past me, toward the doorway. I felt it before I saw it. The change. The presence. Someone approaching. Not rushed. Not hesitant. Just arriving. Adrian did not move. Not yet. He watched the doorway like he had already anticipated this exact moment. That was fast, I murmured. It always is, he replied. The footsteps stopped just outside the room. A brief pause. Then a knock. Light. Controlled. Too controlled. Adrian's gaze flicked to mine for a fraction of a second. Enough to communicate something without words. This is it. I straightened slightly, grounding myself, steadying my breathing, letting everything I had just learned settle into place. Come in, he said. The door opened slowly. A man stepped inside. Late 30s. Composed. Professional. His expression neutral, but his eyes moved quickly, scanning the room, taking in the details without appearing to. And then they landed on me. Just for a second. But I saw it. The flicker. The recognition. And then it was gone. Hidden. Controlled. Perfect. Too perfect. Adrian did not react. Not outwardly. But I felt it beside me. The shift. The confirmation. Sir. The man said, his voice steady. I was informed there have been changes to the access schedule. Adrian nodded once, calm, measured. There have, he said. Silence followed. Brief. Sharp. Then the man spoke again. May I ask why? There it was. The first move. Not aggressive. Not obvious. Just enough. Adrian's voice did not change. No, he said. The word landed clean. Final. The man's expression did not shift. But I saw it. The smallest hesitation. The smallest crack in the pattern he had worked so hard to maintain. And in that moment, I knew. This was not just control. This was exposure. And someone had just stepped into it. The smallest hesitation was all it took. It was not in his voice. Not in his posture. It was in the space between one breath and the next, a fraction of a second where control had to be re-established instead of maintained. I saw it. Adrian saw it too. But neither of us acknowledged it. Not yet. No, Adrian had said, and the word still lingered in the air, final and unmovable. The man across from us did not react the way most people would. He did not push. He did not retreat. He adjusted. Of course, he said smoothly, his tone respectful, measured. I only wanted to ensure continuity in operations. Continuity. The word was careful, neutral, but it carried weight. He was not asking for permission. He was testing boundaries. Adrian's expression did not change. Continuity is my responsibility, he replied. Silence followed. Brief. Controlled. The kind of silence that was not empty but filled with observation, with calculation, with both sides waiting to see who would move next. I stayed still, just as Adrian had instructed, my attention fixed but quiet, absorbing every detail. The man's gaze flicked to me again, just for a second. Not curiosity, recognition, and something else. Assessment. He recovered quickly. Too quickly. I was not aware we had a guest, he said, his voice still even, still controlled. Adrian did not look at him. You were not meant to be, he said. Another pause. Slightly longer this time. The man inclined his head just enough to acknowledge the answer without challenging it. But I could see it now. The pattern Adrian had talked about. Perfection. Too clean. Too controlled. Understood, the man said. If there are changes, I will adjust accordingly. Adjust. There it was again. Not resistance. Adaptation. Exactly what we had been waiting for. Adrian finally turned his head, just slightly, his gaze settling on the man with quiet precision. You always do, he said. The words were neutral, but the tone was not. Something underneath them had shifted. Something sharper. The man held his posture, steady, composed, but I saw it again. That same fraction of a second. That same micro-hesitation. He was processing something he had not expected. Is there anything else you require? He asked. Adrian's gaze stayed on him for one beat longer than necessary. Then, calmly, no, the man nodded once. Efficient. Controlled. Then I will return to my duties, he said. He turned. Walked toward the door. Every step measured. Every movement exact. And yet, something was different now. It was subtle. Almost invisible. But once you saw it, you could not unsee it. The rhythm was off. Just slightly. Just enough. The door closed behind him with a quiet click. Silence returned. But it was not the same silence as before. It was sharper. More defined. Adrian did not move right away. Neither did I. We both stood there, letting the moment settle, letting what we had just seen fully register. That was not random, I said quietly. Adrian exhaled slowly, his gaze still fixed on the door. No, he replied. It was not. I turned slightly, facing him more directly. He came too fast, I added. The change had barely been implemented. Adrian nodded once. Which means he was already watching for it, he said. I felt that settle deep. And he needed to confirm it immediately. I said, yes. Silence again. But now it felt like clarity instead of tension. He recognized me. I said. Adrian's gaze shifted to mine instantly. Yes, he said. He did. There was no hesitation in his answer. No doubt. Just certainty. I took a slow breath. Then he knows something is wrong, I said. Not yet, Adrian replied. I frowned slightly. You saw his reaction, I said. I saw his control, he corrected. That made me pause. Explain, I said. He stepped closer, his voice lowering slightly, more focused now. Recognition is not the same as understanding, he said. He saw something unexpected, but he does not know what it means yet. I let that settle. It made sense. Too much sense. So he is going to watch more closely, I said. Yes, Adrian replied. And that is exactly what we want. I glanced toward the door again, replaying the moment in my head, every detail, every shift, every breath. He asked about continuity, I said. He was not just reacting to the change. He was testing your response. Adrian nodded once. And I gave him nothing, he said. Exactly, I replied. A pause. Then something clicked. Which means he is going to create his own answer. I added. Adrian's gaze sharpened slightly. Yes. The word landed with quiet certainty. And that is when he makes a mistake, I said. Yes, he repeated. Silence followed, but it was different now. It felt like we were no longer waiting for something to happen. It had already started. He is one of the four, I said. Not a question. A statement. Adrian held my gaze for a second, then nodded. Yes. My chest tightened slightly. Not with fear. With confirmation. Which leaves three more, I said. For now, he replied. I studied him carefully. You think there is more than one involved? I said. I know there is, he replied. But only one is leading it. I nodded slowly. And you think it is him? Adrian's expression did not change. But his eyes did. I think, he said carefully, that he moved first. That distinction mattered. A lot. Which means he is either the one in control, I said, or the one trying to stay ahead of it. Exactly, Adrian replied. Silence settled again, but now it felt like direction instead of uncertainty. What happens next? I asked. Adrian stepped back slightly, his attention shifting again, his mind already moving ahead. Now we let him think, he said. And when he does, he paused. Just for a second. Then his gaze returned to mine, sharper than before. He will show us who he really is. He will show us who he really is. The words did not feel like a prediction. They felt inevitable. I stood there for a moment, letting everything settle, every shift, every detail from the last few minutes replaying in my mind, locking into place like pieces of something that had always existed but had only just become visible. Adrian moved first again. He always did. Not because he needed to control the room, but because the room adjusted to him, whether he moved or not. We do not follow him, he said, his voice steady low. Not yet. I nodded slowly. Because he expects that, I said. Yes, he replied. He turned back toward the display, his hand moving across it with quiet precision, isolating the data again, but this time not looking for inconsistencies. Looking for reaction points. He is going to check the system, Adrian continued. Not immediately, but soon. I stepped closer, my eyes following the patterns he was highlighting. And when he does, I said, he will try to correct what you changed. Adrian glanced at me, a brief flicker of something approving passing through his expression. Exactly, he said. Silence settled again, but now it was structured, purposeful, like everything in the room had shifted into alignment with a single direction. So we let him fix it, I said. Adrian's gaze returned to the screen. No, he said. We let him think he fixed it. That difference hit instantly. You are going to leave something behind, I said. Something small. He nodded once. Something only the person who changed it would notice, he said. I felt my chest tighten slightly. Not from fear. From clarity. A signature, I said. Yes, he replied. Silence followed. Then I asked, and what does that give us? Adrian did not hesitate. Confirmation, he said. And direction. I studied the screen again. The name's still there, the patterns no longer invisible. You already know he is one of them, I said. But this tells you if he is the one leading it. Adrian's gaze flicked to mine again. Yes. The word landed with quiet certainty. I let out a slow breath. And if he is not? I asked. Adrian's expression did not change. Then he will lead us to the one who is. The room felt smaller again. Not with tension. With focus. Everything was narrowing. Everything was becoming clearer. You are not just watching him, I said. You are using him. Yes, Adrian replied. He stepped back slightly, his attention shifting again, his mind moving ahead. But we do not push too far, he added. Not yet. I frowned slightly. Why? I asked. Because pressure creates mistakes, he said. But too much pressure creates silence. I nodded slowly. That made sense. Too much force, and people stopped reacting. They shut down. So we keep him comfortable, I said. Just enough, Adrian replied. A pause. Then he added, but not safe. That distinction mattered again. It always did. I glanced toward the door, my mind replaying the man's expression, the The way he had controlled himself, the way he had adapted so quickly. He is careful, I said. Very, Adrian replied. Which means when he moves, it will be subtle. I nodded. But it will be there, I said. Yes. Silence followed, but it felt different now. Like we were no longer waiting for something to happen. We were already inside it. What about the others? I asked. Adrian's gaze shifted back to the screen. They will react too, he said. But differently. I tilted my head slightly. How? I asked. They will wait, he said. Watch. Try to understand what changed before they act. I let that settle. Which means if we see multiple reactions, we separate them, he finished. I nodded slowly. And the one who moves first is not necessarily the most important, I said. No, he replied. But he is the most exposed. That word lingered. Exposed. It changed everything about how I saw the situation. Then we do not rush this, I said. We let it unfold. Adrian's gaze met mine again, steady, certain. Yes. The word felt final. Not an ending. A decision. I took a slow breath, grounding myself again, feeling the shift inside me, the difference between who I had been before I walked into this place and who I was now. You were right, I said quietly. About what? He asked. I held his gaze. I am not just part of the story, I said. I change it. A faint pause. Then something shifted in his expression again. Not doubt. Not calculation. Recognition. Yes, he said. Silence followed. But this time it felt shared. Aligned. He turned slightly, his attention moving back to the system, to the plan, to everything that was already in motion. It will not take long, he said, for him to act. I nodded. And when he does, I let the sentence hang. Adrian finished it. We will be ready. The words settled into the room like something solid, something real. I glanced at the screen one more time, at the patterns that had once meant nothing and now meant everything, at the names that were no longer just data but pieces of a larger design. You said they were watching for changes, I said. Yes, Adrian replied. Then they are about to see one, I said. He looked at me again, his gaze sharp, focused, something deeper behind it now. No, he said quietly. They already have. Silence followed. Not heavy, not uncertain, certain, because the moment that man had stepped into the room, the moment he had looked at me, the moment he had hesitated, the game had already shifted. And now, whether he realized it or not, he was no longer controlling it. He was no longer controlling it. That truth settled into me with a quiet certainty that felt stronger than anything else that had happened since I stepped into this world. I stood there, looking at the screen, at the patterns, at the system that had once felt untouchable and now felt exposed. Not broken. Not yet. But shifting. Adrian did not move for a moment. Neither did I. The silence between us was no longer tension. It was understanding. It has already started, I said quietly. Adrian nodded once. Yes, he replied. His voice was calm, but there was something deeper beneath it now. Not just control. Not just calculation. Resolve. I turned slightly, looking toward the door again, toward the direction the man had left. He is going to check everything, I said. He is going to look for confirmation, for inconsistencies, for anything that explains what he saw. Adrian's gaze followed mine for a brief second, then returned to the screen. And he will not find it, he said. Not yet. I let out a slow breath. Which means he will start creating his own answers, I said. Yes, Adrian replied. And that is when he becomes predictable. The word landed with quiet precision. Predictable. Not because he was careless, but because he would be forced to act within limits he did not fully understand anymore. You turned his certainty into doubt, I said. Adrian's eyes flicked to mine. No, he corrected. I turned his control into reaction. That difference mattered. It always did. I nodded slowly, feeling the shift settle deeper into my understanding. So now we watch how he reacts, I said. Yes, he replied. Silence followed, but it felt different now. Not like something waiting to happen. Like something already unfolding. I stepped closer to the display again, my eyes scanning the patterns, the names, the movements that were no longer invisible. You said one of them is leading this, I said. Yes. And you think it might be him, I added. Adrian did not answer immediately. His gaze stayed on the data, his mind clearly moving ahead, connecting pieces faster than I could follow. I think, he said slowly, that he is close enough to the center to believe he understands it. I frowned slightly. That is not the same as leading it, I said. No, he replied. But it is. Enough to make him dangerous. I let that settle. Because it changed the way I saw everything. This was not just about finding one person. It was about understanding layers, roles, intentions that overlapped without fully aligning. So even if he is not the one who started this, I said, he is still part of how it continues. Yes, Adrian replied. Silence again. But this time it carried something heavier. Final. Then we do not stop at him, I said. Adrian's gaze met mine, steady, certain. No, he said. We do not. The words felt like a line being drawn. Not the end. The beginning of something deeper. I took a slow breath, grounding myself, feeling the weight of everything I had stepped into, everything I had uncovered, everything that was still hidden beneath the surface. You said they were watching me before, I said. Adrian's expression did not change. Yes. Then they expected me to stay where I was. I continued. Invisible. Irrelevant. Yes, he replied again. I held his gaze. Then me being here changes more than just your world, I said. A faint pause. Then something shifted in his expression again. Not surprise. Recognition. Yes, he said. Silence followed, but it was not empty. It was shared. Because we both understood what that meant. This was not just his fight anymore. It was mine too. Then we do not just control what they see, I said slowly. We control what they think they understand. Adrian stepped closer, his presence steady, grounded, like everything around him aligned with that idea instantly. Exactly, he said. The word landed with quiet certainty. I felt something settle inside me then. Not fear. Not doubt. Something else. Something stronger. Clarity. Then we let them believe the story they built is still intact, I said. Yes, Adrian replied. Until it is not. Silence. Then I asked, and when do we break it? Adrian did not answer right away. He looked at me for a long second, his gaze steady, searching, not for doubt, but for alignment, for understanding, for readiness. Then, quietly, when they are too committed to it to step away. I felt that, deep, because it meant this was not about forcing a confrontation. It was about letting them walk into one they could not escape from. So we let it play out, I said. We guide it, he corrected. That difference mattered. It always would. I nodded slowly. And when they finally realized what is happening, I let the sentence trail off. Adrian finished it. It will already be too late. Silence followed. But it did not feel like an ending. It felt like something closing into place. Something inevitable. I glanced at the screen one last time, at the patterns that were no longer hidden, at the names that were no longer just data, at the system that was no longer untouchable. Then I looked back at him. You said I was the mistake they could not control, I said quietly. Adrian held my gaze, steady, certain. Yes. I let out a slow breath. Then let them try, I said. A faint pause. Then something shifted in his expression. Not approval. Not surprise. Something deeper. Something quieter. They will, he said. The words settled into the room like something final. Not a warning. Not a threat. A certainty. And for the first time since this began, I understood exactly what that meant. Because this was never just about surviving what they had planned. It was about becoming the part of it they never saw coming. And now, they were already inside it.